Do you ever wonder about how your childhood may affect you or how things that happened when you were brought up now influence you now? Well, you're in luck because today's episode, we're talking about why nurture beats out nature, as opposed to saying some other word that begins with T and ends with umps, uh, in terms of pretty much everything in life. And we're going to be discussing exactly why. This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's going on, Randy? And real quick, actually, two things. One, I was gonna start when you started, which you beat me by like point 0.2 seconds.
A
Nice.
nanosecond.
The other thing, I wanted to give a shout out to Tal Gurr, who gave us a really nice review, wrote an awesome review. And you know what's funny? I read it and I was like, man, this is a really good description of what we do. And why is it that like if I tried to write something like that, it wouldn't come out that way of your own stuff? Do you know what I mean? It's like
Mm.
I feel like it's hard
Yeah,
sometimes to describe.
I think it's the double standard technique, that type of thing, where when subjectively you look at yourself, you don't see yourself like other people see you.
Yeah. But it's really good. And if you want to check it out, it's on elevatedsociety.com, and I'll drop a link to that in the show notes for this
Awesome.
episode too. Yeah.
Awesome. So today we're talking about why nature loses to nurture, as opposed essentially like why genetics don't matter as much as your upbringing and the events that happen to you in your life. And exactly why, because this has been like a chicken or the egg type of thing discussion that's been going on forever. But I think modern science has proven that nurture actually trumps nature.
And you know what's funny? Like we're so like I don't think we realize how influenced we are by external pressures, expectations, all these things we learn before we can like if you think about it, right? Like from 0 to probably like 15, we're just absorbing crap from authority figures, from people we see as like knowledgeable and stuff, from our society, norms, etiquette, all that crap. And then that stays with us. So even when we start thinking for ourselves and trying to be ourselves, you're dealing with all this stuff in the background. It's like, I think that it's like, what did the Buddhists call it? Like the psychic knots, right? All the stuff that ties up our mentality and causes us stress and depression, anxiety, all of that. It's a lot of this weight we carry from the past, right? That we have to deal
Hmm.
with. I've been noticing
Yeah,
that a lot too. It's like crazy. Sorry.
geez, I've been going through some crazy shit recently, like just right up this alley, where stuff that happened to me when I was like 8 years old, like still 35 years later, still messing with me nonstop. And it's like the dumbest stuff. It's just because kids are being kids and adults are busy and, you know,
Yeah.
and they're not perfect and all this stuff. And it's just like, man, how terrible is that? That like you pretty much get imprinted when you're young and then it'll just run in the background
Yeah.
your whole entire life.
It's funny because I have one of my good friends and a mutual friend. His family's very like now like when I go see them and stuff, they're very like Brady Bunch style looking, like super
Mm.
sweet, all very nice, all get along real well. And it's funny because like the last time I saw him, I was like, there's like always like this ping of jealousy.
Yeah.
Because like,
Yeah.
and it's not that, I'm
Who
happy
wouldn't
for
want
him.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's very funny. I've been thinking about this a lot too, because recently, like, I just had some summer session stuff end, and I noticed like, and this happens, I don't know why I never really think about it more, but every time my schedule changes, which it does fairly often with teaching, I always get depressed when one thing ends in that interim in between. And I think it's because
Hmm.
like, and I've realized like part of it, I think it's just like, my schedule dramatically changes. It goes from like schedule to kind of nothing. And I have to kind of, figure out myself and then back to a different schedule completely, which is always a little bit of
Hmm.
a transition and change. But I think it's more like also that like associating your value with your productivity and with a sense of purpose that you're getting from like work and stuff. And then when
Hmm.
that's suddenly not there, it's like this immediate drop. And I realized that and I was able to feel better much faster this time, which I was proud of myself. But
Hmm.
I think a lot of that also comes from these expectations like from the past, of like we all have these expectations put on us, I think when we're young that we're going to be special or something, or right, we're going to make a difference in whatever. And
Hmm.
that is carried with us too. And that's a hard one to kind of contend with, I think, really difficult.
And we also grew up in a super competitive environment. Like
Yeah.
I was thinking about that this past week, how like the community that we grew up in was super competitive. If you were not like really good at everything, then it was bad. And like
Yeah.
being defective is like the worst possible thing you could be. And so like then And especially like I was thinking about it, how like there wasn't at least when the way that I felt when I was a kid was there was an expectation that I was supposed to be good at something the first time I was seeing it.
Yeah.
And so like
Yeah.
that's like impossible. Like how do you do that? And I just realized like all these things that happened to me when I was a kid, I was like, that was the first time. Like no wonder I was garbage at it. Like, yeah.
No, I know what you mean though, right? That idea that like if you're not like if you don't show like a natural gift for it the first time, it's not worth your time. But I
Hmm.
also remember that too because I also remember like where we grew up too. Like I remember our parents like talking about their kids together, and it was always like the one-upping BS and like
Hmm.
those kinds of comparisons. And I think
Yeah.
you don't realize, I think, how much that's
Mine's on
affected.
traveling soccer. Mine's on honor roll. Well,
Yeah.
mine's valedictorian and mine got accepted to this Ivy League.
Yeah.
Garbage.
I do. I remember like even like when I we were considering colleges, I remember like community college wasn't even an option because that
Dude,
was like
and
considered
you were like
failure.
expected to try to get into an Ivy League. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such
Yeah.
freaking craziness. Yeah. But anyways, so back to this thing about how science has figured out that nurture actually trumps nature. So the reason that I said that is because, for a long time, people thought genetics mattered a whole bunch. Like they would always say, "Oh, I'm fat because it's genetic. I'm this because it's genetic. I'm that because I'm lazy because." And they've done with genetics. They thought that like once they figured out the human genome, they'd have everything figured out. But then that was
Yeah.
20 some years ago, and guess what? They haven't. So it turns out that this thing called epigenetics, where essentially like if you have the genes, it makes you more prone to something, but it can turn on and turn off. And so genetics, they found, only accounts for about 20% of whatever traits you have, which means that that's the nature part, accounts for about 20%, but 80% is what happens to you in life, what you do with your life, the cards, how you play the cards you get, that type
Yeah,
of
the
thing.
environment you dealt with, right? So the environmental factors and then like the factors of like literally nurture, like the family, the social
Hmm.
relationships, all of that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. I do remember that. I remember when they completed the genome. Was that 2003 or 9? I can never remember.
I
One of
think it
those.
was early on. It could have been like 2001, 2003, something like that.
Yeah, the first when they first got it done, I remember because they were excited. They were like, "We're gonna figure out everything, right? Like everything will be solved." And I remember like because a lot of people too. It's funny how we like immediately look for excuses too. Because I remember like they were a big deal and they found like they're like this gene deals with addiction, and so like it's not your fault, right? Like all these things, and it's
Yeah.
like it's it's funny how like whenever we look for this stuff, a lot of times I always feel like it's trying to take the blame off of us, the individual, and our
Hmm.
choices. And
Well,
a lot of it, yeah,
and
good.
also marketing, consumerism.
Yeah,
A lot of it's trying to do that. How like, oh, you have this gene, it's not your fault, just buy our pill.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
insane too, right? And it's like,
Hmm.
well, it's funny. I was listening to something the other day too. They're talking about depression and like, I don't know if you remember that book Prozac Nation when it came out, and like, you know,
Mm-mm. I didn't. What did that
well,
one
there's
say?
tons of people they're prescribing these antidepressants to and all, and like they can be helpful, but they never solve all the problems. They're kind of like a band-aid at first, and then you need to do other stuff. But they never
Yeah.
were requiring people to do other stuff. It's always these quick fixes. And I think
Hmm.
that's also probably another problem because we have this relationship with medicine where we think that like that's all you need to solve these problems. And again, it's also
Hmm.
marketing and also just like I think biases towards it that like our medicine will solve everything. You don't have to do anything. But the reality is like you have to do a lot to also fix these problems. You have to make efforts beyond just taking a
Hmm.
pill. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just so like I've been struggling with a whole bunch of the stuff we've been talking about this week, and so I started listening to David Burns again when panic attacks. And he goes into, I mean, he goes into all this stuff in antidepressants because when he went to medical school, he was like a psychiatrist and he prescribed this stuff and he would go to these meetings with like the psychiatry association and everything. And they were saying that these things worked wonders. And he was like, how come it works wonders, yet all of my clients it doesn't work on?
Yeah.
And so like now they have more research where they're like, like 30% of people they've done, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff where like you give people a placebo, 30% are going to feel better no matter what. And
Yeah.
they took a look at depression and like if you give someone a placebo who has depression, their depression score gets better by 8 points. If you give them an antidepressant, their score gets better by 10 points, which is good, better,
Yeah.
not noticeably different, like marginally different. And antidepressants, they're 5 times more likely to commit suicide on, which arguably you wouldn't want to put somebody on these types of pills when they're depressed.
they also have
So,
tons of like side effects too. And
oh
then, and
yeah.
don't get me wrong, like they can be helpful. And I know people who like have found ones that have worked really well and enabled them
Hmm.
to then like actually make changes in their lives that help them a lot. And that's great. But I don't
Hmm.
think that's by and large the case for most people. Because I
Yeah.
try, and yeah, the side effects are terrible on them. Like
Yeah,
the
they've
lethargic.
done a whole
Oh
bunch
God.
more studies and everything where CBT is actually the modality of choice, where actually works more effectively than any type of medication they've ever tried for depression,
Wow.
for treating depression. So if anybody is listening with depression, take a look at CBT, particularly team CBT, because it actually measures things. You get measurable results, which is a novel concept in psychology.
Yeah,
And
actually doing metrics and like evaluating how
yeah,
you're
yeah,
doing.
right. Not just sitting, chatting behind closed doors. You actually get noticeably better.
I know, I always
So,
thought that was funny. You go to talk with these people, and there's like no assessment of your goals and progress towards them usually, which I always found so
mhm,
odd. It's like you wouldn't go to anything else and not have any expectation of when it's going to be done or whether it's working. It's so
right.
weird to like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've been going back to a whole bunch of the team CBT stuff because all of this stuff we've been talking about. I mean, I've been struggling with these things all week. How like things that have happened as a child, and it almost makes me wonder, like, am I ever going to be able to change that? Because I know these things, like, for a long time, these things ran me unconsciously. Like, I had no idea
Yeah.
these were my patterns for a long time. Now I see, oh, this is why this happens, but it
Well,
still happens. It's like
I
it's I guess it's like that allegory where it's like you walk down the street and you fall in a pothole. Okay? And then so like the next time you walk down the street, you see the pothole and you fall in it. And then the time after
would.
that, you see the pothole and go around it, and then eventually you decide to go down a different street. So I guess where I am right now is where I see the pothole and I still fall in it every time.
I feel like
So
that too, though.
yeah.
Honestly, it's funny. I think it's like I do think like it's the thing that's hard. I think is that it takes us. We don't really start thinking for ourselves till we're already like pretty developed and have a lot of this baggage with us. And so if you really do try and like change yourself, you're dealing with this stuff for a long time. And I think it's also just realizing that like this is something we're going to be dealing with and you have to have like the awareness and self-awareness to kind of be on top of it and acknowledge it, which is hard. And I
Well,
do feel
dude,
it myself. I feel like like right where I see the puddle, I'm still falling in like, but I'm getting better at seeing it, which means I'm getting out of it a little bit faster, which is nice.
yeah.
You
But
know?
also you have like no concept of how bad or how good things are for you because
No.
we only have one subjective experience. And I honestly had no idea how like fucked up my childhood and everything was until I was going to a therapist and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like have you like seriously and I was like, I thought that was normal." And
Dude,
so
I
it's
know,
like
right?
that,
Isn't that funny?
yeah.
I always told them, I was like, no, I think I had a pretty happy. I don't know.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to
I
say?
thought
It's
it
the
was
only one I
normal.
knew. It
Yeah,
seemed,
right?
looking around me externally, it seemed pretty par for the course, I guess, like for
Hmm.
everybody else. So I don't know. How am I supposed to judge that?
Yeah. But yeah, so it's been a heck of a week and like I mean, you know, fortunately, my tool belt is bigger than ever. You
Yeah,
know,
right?
I feel like see, like before I would have started feeling down and then just gone into this depression spiral. But now I start feeling down and I'm like, well, I know the answer is somewhere in Team CBT. So I started listening to David Burns stuff. I started, writing on a regular basis, examining my thoughts and different things like that because depression is pretty much caused by the way that you think.
Yeah.
And so if you change your thoughts, you can change how you feel. And so,
Well, that's actually
yeah.
how I figured it out. Was I went back to journaling again this week because I was trying to work through it to figure out like I was like because it can't just I was like I knew the schedule change usually causes it. I was like, but that can't be the main reason because like that's just like I mean it could be I guess whatever, but I didn't think it
Mhm.
was. Anyway, so I started doing
Yeah.
that and I figured it out. But like and it's very helpful because once you realize it, it can be a lot easier to kind of move past it and not feel like that because at least you have a cause for it. But I
Hmm.
don't think most people aren't aware, dude, how much of this stuff is unconsciously affecting us. These biases that are caused by these norms and values and just things that are kind of placed on us from the outside. And, you know, it makes you wonder too, like, we feel like individuals, but are we really ourselves? If all this stuff is affecting us that we didn't choose, we never said yes to, that was just a product of where we were and stuff. Are we making choices that are really our own, or are we just being influenced by all this baggage that we carry, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. And it's one of those things where like our brain was designed to help us survive, but it is not at all designed to help us enjoy life.
Do you know what I always liked? And there's in Kant, and when Kant talks about his morality, I think it's in the groundwork, but he says, he says like, if the goal was to be happy, because he thinks the goal is goodwill, he's like, if the goal was to be happy, nature provided a very weird tool with reason, because reason's like not equipped to get us to happiness. It's not like we would have been better served with instinct. Like if the goal of life
Hmm.
was just happiness, reason is higher order thinking is terrible because it
Yeah.
doesn't actually make us happy. It actually makes us more unhappy often than not, I think.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
absolutely. Like all of all of these things we call our problems come because there's something brushing up against our values. Or
Yeah.
like and so like David Burns all the time talks about the magic button where like, you may be feeling sad, depressed, all these different things. If he gave you a magic button now where you could press it and all your feelings would go away, would you do that? And like most of the time, first time you're like, yeah, I would do that. But then if you would do that, then you would just be okay with like people crossing your boundaries. You would just be okay with your life not working out the way that you want it. So actually, like all of those things that irritate us and depress us and cause us anxiety, these actually show beautiful things about us. Like we have high standards for ourselves. We want our life to be good. We're not just like, we're not just okay accepting stuff and like thinking that life is great when it's not. So it's like these things that we don't like that we're trying to get rid of with medications oftentimes actually say very beautiful things about us. And so it's trying to remember that.
You know what's funny? I used to get so frustrated with my dad because like when I was in college, particularly when I was in college, like I would have a lot of work to do. I get stressed out, trying to get it all done and
Mhm.
stuff and trying to come up with ideas and stuff. And he'd be like, you just need to relax. I'm like, that's not helpful right now. You know what I mean? Because the stress is also part of what's motivating me to get these things done. And it's like, and I understand where you're coming from when you say that, but it's just not, you just shut up. Like, it's
Yeah.
not a helpful thing to say. And he did it so much. And I was like, just stop saying
I think
that.
there must be something that happens to men around the time that they're like 40 or 50 or something like that, where all of a sudden they can just like detach and relax from stuff. Because my dad did the same thing all the time. And I was like, well, how do you do that? And he's like, I don't know. You just do it. And it's like no knowledge of how to do it. You just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Just saying it doesn't help. Like you're
No.
not giving me any method for anything. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. It's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it used
It's
to kill me,
crazy.
dude. But yeah, stuff like that. It's like I don't think we realize how much it affects us. And then
Hmm.
and I think I actually feel bad, even worse for people now, I think, because with the internet and social media and stuff, and just like I feel like we're constantly like the expectations for success are so high now. But it's
Hmm.
also because we're in a time where, there's this wealth gap that's just getting insane. And so it's like you have either you're on a $500 million yacht and you're buying your 47th home, or you're a failure.
Yeah.
Like,
I
which is
know.
just insane.
Yeah, I accidentally clicked on a video by Alex Hormozy today where again he was talking about success and how like it's going to be lonely and terrible and painful and hard and all these things, but that's what makes you a success because you can stick with it, you can do it, and that's why most people don't do it. And it really rubbed me the wrong way
Sounds
because he
terrible.
but also he glorified success once again because financially he's been successful, but he did not at all talk about what he talked about with Tony Robbins, where he hates his fucking life,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
And that's
And so
most of
like you can
them.
have all the success you want, just like everybody else who has all the success, but they hate their fucking lives. So
Yeah.
why would you want that?
That's what cracks me up though. It's like I think it's you get caught in this cycle of basically like it's like workaholism and you're competing again. That's the other thing that cracks me up too is when money's our only metric for success, there is no bar. There's
Hmm.
no upper limit because you can just always have more. There's always somebody with more. So it's like there's no way you can like I'm sure he feels less successful now that must just the IPO for Space X, or whatever the hell, X, whatever the hell it's called, SpaceX or whatever, just went and now he's like a trillionaire or whatever. Like now he now he probably feels like a failure, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
that It's just, yeah, it's
Dude,
insane.
but I can see how these guys do that because I this is something that I've been dealing with recently in my life, how like working I can get because I can see that if I put in enough work, eventually something will take off. Like
And
I
if you
can
just
just see how
focus,
that
right? If you
happens.
just focus
Yeah.
on one thing and ignore everything else,
And do it
yeah.
long enough, hard enough, it'll just happen. Whereas like relationships are challenging for me. Very, very challenging
Oh,
because
dude, same here. Yeah.
you can do everything quote unquote to the best of your abilities or whatever it is, and still it doesn't work. And it's like the most frustrating thing ever. And so like I can totally see how these guys would just be focused all on business because every like relationships are just really, really frustrating.
Yeah, they're hard, right? And it's like, when you focus on like success in that way, right? It's very analytical. It's very like your effort equates to usually your success, right? And like you can kind of ignore everything else. And the other problem is society accepts it as a positive.
Hmm.
So
Bingo.
when
Yeah.
people do that, right, we go, oh, but look how good they're doing. They're just, yeah, they're working 120 hours a week, but look at what they're doing,
He's
right?
got
With
five
that.
divorces already.
Yeah, he must be doing well.
Yeah. Right?
But it is funny, right? We don't, because I don't think that's what we are, especially in the US. We are terrible. I think probably worldwide. We're terrible at like considering the whole person. And like,
Mm.
and I think as individuals, we are too. Like, all of our needs is like, we're not just uh, a robot that goes to work. We're not just an entity that has one relationship, right? We live in communities, we do all these other things, and like figuring that out takes a lot of work. And I think we also don't get a lot of time. I was thinking about this the other day too, like, because forget what I was watching. They were talking about like uh addiction and stuff on like these like halfway house and whatnot and all. I was like, that's the other problem. We don't give people either time to deal with things. Like it doesn't have to be addiction, but like depression too. Like it's not like you can just stop working and stuff and get
Hmm.
healthy because you have bills, you have stuff you gotta do, you have responsibilities. So it's like
And
we're
same goes.
always
You have 2 weeks off a year. You have no health insurance.
yeah.
You have student debt that's outrageous. And
Yeah.
it's just like, how are you supposed to even survive in this system?
Yeah. And then you're trying to, be happy all the time and all this other
Hmm.
stuff. It's like, yeah, we
Yeah,
don't
because
give.
everybody else is living their best life.
Yeah. That's the other thing I can't stand too is like it's like just
Yeah.
constantly lying to try and make ourselves appear better to
Yeah.
others rather than worrying about how we look for ourselves.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of
Yeah.
insane.
It's a crazy life. What was this episode about again? Why nurture? Why
The
nurture?
biases we
Oh,
carry
so
with
here's
us, you know?
yeah, so here's the other thing, nature versus nurture. So like nature has some impact, we'll say 20%. Nurture is the rest of it. But then despite what happened, you also have the choice of how to play the hand you've been dealt.
Yeah, absolutely.
But how do you do that?
Well, it's
And I'm
funny.
asking because I really
Uh,
need help with this one.
I know, right? Well, that's what's funny too, because like this came up every time I talk about Sartre's conception of radical responsibility and radical freedom. People always push back. It's like, well, yeah, but like circumstances and stuff, we can't like we're not free to make choices. They limit our choices. I was like, yes, but you're still making a choice. No matter how limited it is, you still have some choice and you're responsible for it. That's his view, right? Which is, don't get me wrong, pretty extreme sounding when you think about it. But I think there's some truth to that. Like the reality is like none of us choose where we're born, the time period, any of this, right? We're kind of just stuck in a system. And by the time we can think for ourselves, we carry all this baggage. And it's like, I think that's why we have to be more concerned with making intentional choices and self-reflection and being aware because at the end of the day, this is our life. Nobody else can live it. And whether we like it or not, this is the system we're in. And I think it's more about like I kind of think about the like old ancient philosophers, like where like the good life was more about just trying to live a good life. But it was something you were going to do your whole life. It wasn't something where like you hit this line, you're like, hey, I'm happy now, I don't have to worry about it. It was something that
Hmm.
took continual effort. Like look at Marcus Aurelius and all with his meditations, right? Same questions comes back to a million times because they
Hmm.
were just the same questions on his mind over and over again. He's still working through it. And I think
Hmm.
that's kind of getting comfortable with that might be what we need to do is like that these things are always going to come up, but we can handle them a little better each time. And the more intentional we are, the more we self-reflect and kind of think about our own wants and how these things are influencing them, the more we kind of can see clearly and hopefully make better choices. Not that that's that
Yeah.
optimistic, but still.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that there's some good points there. And like kind of what you were going along the lines of saying, where like a lot of depression and feeling bad can come from black or white thinking or all or nothing thinking, where you think it's all
Yeah.
this way or it's all another way. And that can lead to overgeneralization and a whole bunch of other stuff that just makes you feel terrible. And so like learning to recognize that these things are overgeneralization, that it's either a failure or a success. You're either winning or you're losing. It's done or it's not done. And really, those aren't true because it's all just shades of gray somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And so learning to recognize that has been helpful for me over this past week because, it's like these same three areas that are like all the areas for everybody: relationships, finances, and health. And it's like
Yeah.
they're I want to get to a point where they're all solved simultaneously.
It would be
And
awesome.
and so far that hasn't happened, you know? So it's like, but it's like it's frustrating because I get really down about this stuff and
Yeah.
it's like but they can't all be, number one, they're not all going to be solved all at the same time. And number two, yeah, maybe they're not 100% perfect, but they're not 0% either. There's somewhere in between, and I can do certain things to help push them one way or another.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's kind of one part of the things that I've been thinking about this week.
No, but I
Hmm.
think that's accurate too, right? Which is just admitting to yourself that like I I really think so much of it too is like how we talk about things in society, especially on like with social media influencers and stuff like, treating it as like the game and all that BS, where everything does come down to this very much like definitive way of thinking of black and white, yes and no, winning, losing type thing. And it's really toxic because it messes up your whole conception of like the degrees and what it means. And like I think a happy life probably means you're making compromises in some areas, right? Because you're doing what matters most to you. So your relationship matters most. Maybe work doesn't matter as much. And you
Hmm.
compromise there a little bit because you're more worried about this. I mean, I think that's the tough choices we do have to make as an individual being alive, you
Yeah,
know?
it's like that thing you can have anything, but you can't have everything.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's just it. And it's hard
And it's
being
it's really tough
self-aware.
to be able to give up some things in order to have other things.
Yeah. I think
The
about
other
that.
thing that I've been,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
well, if you were going to mention on,
Oh,
because
I
I
was
was
gonna
going to
say,
bring up
oh,
something else.
that's fine. Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I think about that all the time, right? Like, because I always get to a point where I think, like, if I could just focus on just this and only this, like, it's like, but do I really want to? Not really,
Mm,
but like, there
yeah,
is that, like, where it would be nice, but then you'd lose everything else.
I know. Yeah, it's a shame that you can't do all of it.
I know. It's
The
a
other
bitch.
thing that I've been doing this week is remembering things that are going well. Okay.
Oh,
Like for instance, you remember like last year when I had this coughing neighbor who was just hacking coughing
yes.
nonstop for a whole entire year?
Feels like
Well, he doesn't
yesterday.
live here anymore.
Hey, nice.
I know they did not extend his lease because he was that much of a nuisance. So like thankfully it was only a year. But I forget that. And so like now I'm sitting like today I was sitting on the couch in my room and I was just like quiet. Like just like
Yeah.
remembering things that are really good. And it reminds me of like what we used to do with the small delights. And I stopped doing that. I've been meaning to get back to it, where we just notice things that are good. And so like there's all these different things that are good that it's easy to not think of the good
Well,
things
dude,
because the painful things they hurt. You're thinking about them all the time. But
yeah,
the good stuff you forget about.
the discomforts and stuff take up more of your awareness quickly, right? And
Hmm.
faster. And I think you're right. I think like it's also like we are so good at taking things for granted that are good. And then assuming they're going to be that way forever and then focusing on all the bad. I think you're right. Yeah, the small delights thing was awesome. And like focusing on that, like what's good and positive now, even if it's only little things like I have a great cup of coffee and all, changes your whole outlook because we do bias towards the negative, I think, more often than not.
I do totally.
Yeah,
Like I heard it. The reason that I heard it was I was reading this book by Sri something or other. The dude who did Hardwired Happiness on it was a TED Talk from probably like 10, 15 years ago.
back when
It
TED
was called
Talks were good.
Hardwired Happiness. Yeah, I know, right? But he wrote a book called Ancient Modern, what is it? Ancient Roots, Modern, no, Modern Roots, Ancient Wisdom, something like that. I don't know. Anyways, but he said, take a look at your little finger, your pinky finger, and how does it feel? And you take a look at it, you feel it, and be like, oh, how about that? He's like, how much of the past day have you spent thinking about how that pinky finger feels? And answer's none. Okay.
Zero.
But you slam that thing in a car door and you will think about it nonstop.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same thing with life, where like things that are going well, there's no problem with the pinky finger. Don't think about it. But slamming in a car door, have a problem, something's not going the way you want it, you obsess about it. And so that was a kind of like a wake up call for me, how I can spend more time just thinking about things that are going right instead of always focusing on these things that aren't.
Well, that's it's funny. It's like I was started doing meditation again too because of that reason and like the letting go of our thoughts, not attaching to them. And that's
Mhm.
the problem is we attach those, we make the discomfort and the bad ones blow up because we latch onto them so much more readily than the good ones. And then we miss out on the good ones and don't even experience the good from them. Like, when you don't, when you take for granted those things in your life that are positive, you don't even realize them. Like the quiet in your
Mhm.
apartment now, right? Like you
Mhm.
probably didn't even register until that moment. And it's
It
like,
didn't. It
yeah,
didn't. And he's been gone for like 5 months already. And
yeah.
this was the first time that I was like, oh my God, quiet.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is crazy. So we need
Mhm.
more what? Self-awareness. We need to be more aware of what these things are, and also just it's gonna take time to get better. I mean, that's the reality, I think. But it can
Yeah.
happen.
And just be nice to yourself through the process because we're just these angry apes that somehow developed bigger brains. That's
You
all.
gotta be nice to yourself in the
Violent apes. Yeah.
yeah. You gotta be
Violent
nice to
apes that
yourself in
develop
the
bigger.
process too, because chances are it's gonna take your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. By the time you figure it out, you're gonna die. Jeez,
There you go.
that's crazy.
Ah,
Yeah. Well, that's all for this episode, nature versus na nurture, and why one wins over the other. If you enjoyed it, we have hundreds of other episodes on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, this is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
later, Andy.